What is up, guys? Today, Griff and I are going to break down our favorite topwater rods. I can't believe this isn't an episode that we've actually discussed before.
Yeah, for something that we do so often.
Right.
Yeah, we definitely need to get into it.
Yeah, so we are going to break down all our favorite rods for all the topwater baits that you guys should be throwing this summer. If you want to dive in with us, see what we think, let's do it. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of OSP, Evergreen, Depths, Lucky Craft, Jackal, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard to find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. All right, welcome back, my friends. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, Tackle Otaku on Instagram, being joined by my buddy at G-Sticks Bespoke on Instagram, aka Griff, the Yes Man. What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
We're also joined by the King, Jeffrey the King on Instagram. What's up, Jeff?
Nice to see you both.
Same, likewise. We're the Hookup Tackle USA. Today, we are breaking down our favorite topwater rods. This is an exciting subject.
It is.
So topwater is basically, I mean, pretty much anywhere in the country that you are right now, it's going to be topwater season for a few months.
Oh, yeah.
So out here in Arizona, we're pretty fortunate. We can almost throw topwater year round. Depending on the year, sometimes we get to, but really, you know, this is like a 9 or 10 month season for us. So we throw topwater all the time, and even on days when topwater may not be the main presentation that they're eating, it's always tied on, it's always thrown, it's always ready to go. And so choosing the right rod can do several things. A, it can really help you present the bait properly, get good walks out of it, get good hookup ratios, get good land ratios, but it can also really improve your fun while you're out there if you have the right setup for the right baits. Yeah. So how do you, when like on a normal day when you're going out, how many different topwater setups do you do multiple setups, or do you just do one rod that you put all your shit on?
So it's like 2 rods max, but normally I just take 1 rod with me.
Okay.
For topwater, and then I just roll with that.
Yeah. So on the opposite side of that, I take like 5,000 different rods. Yeah. So literally every single bait has its specific use. Yes. Right? So they make fun of me all the time for having too much shit. Griff is like the yin and yang to that. It just keeps shit really basic. So this will be a very fun conversation to have. Yeah. Because depending on what side you guys are on, if you guys just like to get 1 or 2 things, just have it work for everything, then, you know, Griff's gonna have some great info for you. If you like to really micro dissect, like I do, then, no, of course I'm gonna have some great info.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. So, how do you want to do this? You want to start by bait? You want to start by rod?
Yeah, let's start by bait.
Okay. All right, so let's jump in, and we're gonna break this down kind of by bait category here. This is probably the best way to go. So really, I kind of have an assortment of different topwater baits, anywhere from a buzz bait to a popper to a frog to a crawler to a walking bait. Okay. So let's start right here. Let's start with walking baits. Okay, because this is where a lot of guys are going to be this time of the year. So I grabbed a handful of different walking baits here. These are some of our more popular ones. So something like a kick knocker or a shower blows or a diamante. Also like the pup version of it, something like a gunfish, a Sammy, giant dog X, right? So kind of a good assortment of walking baits. So when you look at this pile of baits right here, are you putting this all on 1 rod? Are you breaking this into 2? What are you doing?
That all goes on 1 rod.
1 rod for you?
1 rod, yeah.
Okay. So for me, this is without question 2 very different rods. So let's start the combo. You take it. What is the 1 rod you're putting this kind of stuff on?
So for something like this, I'm going to throw 9 times out of 10. I'm going to use my jerkbait rod.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Jerkbait Special is a great rod. It's got just enough action on there to when I'm working that bait, I'm not pulling it. And you know, some of these baits you can walk in place, but if your rod is too fast, it's gonna pull it forward every single time, even no matter how much slack you're popping on. So you need that tip to bend to get that bait to just walk. So I found that the Jerkbait Special from Megabass, it's perfect for me and the cadence that I like to use. I work the bait, I keep it out there for a long time, and I'm not pulling it forward. The rod's super light. It fits in my hand well. Every time I talk to someone about walking bait rods, I always tell them, you know, any jerkbait rod makes a great topwater rod.
I agree. One of the challenges to this type of rod we have guys all the time that come in and they're like, I want a rod to throw a jerkbait and topwater on.
Yes.
And one of the challenges is if you only have one rod, a lot of times, like this time of the year, they're eating topwater and they're eating a jerkbait.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you want fluoro on your jerkbait and you want mono on your topwater, or braid on your topwater and fluoro on your jerkbait, right?
Yeah.
So you were just saying before we started filming, how many jerkbait special rods do you own?
I think I have 7 of them at my house.
Right.
Yeah. And
so
the jerkbait's not a huge part of my arsenal. I use them all for topwater.
Okay.
Right. I think I have like 2 Levantes that still have the foam on them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you're just stockpiling just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you only use one at a time, and then when that one wears out, you've got more in rotation.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. I tell myself every year, I'm like, I need a new jerkbait rod, but I'm still using the older one.
The same one. Yeah. So, in your opinion, so you've got the Orochi Jerkbait Special in your hand. The difference between Orochi, Levante, do you notice much of a difference, or are they both good for you?
Yeah, they both work just the same.
Okay.
I feel maybe I can go with a little bit of a heavier bait with the Orochi.
Just because it's slightly faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a great rod to talk about too. I'm surprised actually. I haven't been paying attention to what you throw, so I didn't actually know that you threw your topwater on this rod. What's interesting is that you've got basically a $350 rod in the Orochi or a $250 rod in the Levante. So I mean, 2 good price points. Either way you go.
Yeah. And
lots of versatility. And you find that rod, like this is really kind of for me like my deciding factor. Like if I'm throwing a full size kick knocker or a big shower blows, those weigh 3/4 of an ounce, right? Yeah. And so for me, I find that this rod needs to be much different than this rod. You find that rod handles both of them well for you.
Yeah.
In your approach.
Yeah, I think it handles it perfect. It'll cast the small one a mile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
then it's going to give you the action to fight the fish every single time. It's not going to pull anything out. It's a great rod for both.
Cool. So for me, I'm more of a 1-2 punch with this stuff, Jeff, and I know you've been on board with me 9 million times, but this has become my 1-2 punch. So of course, I can't talk topwater without talking about the Madbull. Right, so this is a Destroyer P5 Madbull. It's a 7-foot rod. It's rated up to an ounce. The other one that goes side and side with it is the Steez 7.2 medium. Okay, so this one's rated to 3/4 of an ounce. Basically, the difference between these rods is very similar to what Griff was talking about with the Jerkbait Special. When you guys are looking for a topwater rod, it's important, all these have treble hooks on them, right? So once the fish is hooked, it's really important that rod has bend through the middle of the rod, right? You want that rod to be relatively parabolic to where it's bending through the middle, so it's absorbing that head shake, because when you've got 9 hooks on a bait, that fish is gonna have it in all kinds of fucked up places. Head, side, jaw, I mean, hopefully it's way wedged, but probably at least half the time you hook a topwater fish, it's like, oh, stay on there, because it's hooked in some weird place just because there's so many hooks on it. So having a rod that bends and gives, super important, right? But you can't have too soft of a rod, like a crankbait rod, or you're never gonna be able to walk a big bait like this, especially at a long distance, right? So there's this fine line between having a rod that's soft enough, but powerful enough to still be able to work the bait, if that makes sense. So for me, the Madbull is basically above half an ounce. It's the no-brainer rod for me. So, for throwing the full-size kick knocker, a full-size shower blows, a super spook, a diamante, that size walking bait, 100% of the time they go on the Madbull. It's so perfect for that size bait. But I find that when I go downsize to a pup, to a little gunfish, right, to a giant dog X, something like that, I find that it's really powerful, and you can totally make it work.
Yeah.
Right? If I only had one rod to do everything, it would probably be this rod, but since I don't have to, and I could have multiple rods, this rod, the Steez 7.2 medium, is like the perfect complement to that rod for throwing the smaller, lighter baits. That 3/8 and ½ ounce topwater, this rod just crushes. Once I transition over to that 3/4, it gets a little soft at the tip for me for walking a bigger bait from a long distance. So for me, this is the 1-2 punch for those style baits. For Griff, that's his 1 punch. So there you go, walking baits, a couple different options. All right.
How do you like the 7.2 length compared to the 7-foot?
So for me, a lot of rods, and we talk about this pretty often, there's some rods that are in sync with each other across platforms, meaning I could go from a Megabass rod to a Steez, and the rods perform very similar. It just feels like I'm picking up a rod that's part of the same lineup, right?
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes, like if I go from like say a combat stick to an NRX, like sometimes it's like I have to reset my head and remind myself what it is I'm using, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I don't feel much of a difference between these two rods, and I think the biggest reason is because this one is 7.2, so it's got those extra 2 inches, but it's so light that it feels like I'm walking the bait the same way as this one that's 7 foot.
Yeah.
So I don't notice a big difference in these two rods as far as actually the way it's feeling to me and the walking. Those extra 2 inches don't get in the way for me.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, another rod that we should definitely mention also if you guys are in the market for a new topwater rod. This is an amazing rod for $199. This is the Evergreen Combat Stick shower blows rod. So this is a 7.2. It's a medium heavy, but it's designed, I would say it's more of a medium plus than a medium heavy. Right, so it's got a really soft tip. It's not as parabolic through the midsection as say the Jerkbait Special or either of the two rods that I use, but it's a really nice rod, completely capable of being a similar rod to this where it could kind of do all those things as well. And combat sticks are bang for the buck.
Evergreen really didn't miss on any of their models on these combat sticks. They all do really well.
Yeah, so that could be another option for you guys as well. Okay, let's jump over to our next category of topwater here, and let's talk about poppers. Okay, now I grabbed a Pop Max because both of us love throwing a Pop Max, and I grabbed a Rio Rico because for me, if I'm throwing a popper, which is admittedly probably 1% of the time or less for me, I'm just not a popper guy. But there are times when you have to throw a popper if you want me to get bit. You throw a popper way more than I do.
I throw a popper on like 99% of my fishing trips.
Perfect. All right, so let's start with you. What is your go-to popper rod?
So the Jerkbait Special.
Shocker. Here we go again, Jeff.
The Jerkbait Special is my go-to popper rod. It's the same reason as for the walking bait, but it's because I use all my poppers as a walking bait.
Okay.
I'm never just doing a single plop and then pause.
So you're taking this, and instead of kind of pop, pop, pause, or pop, pause, you're getting it to actually walk.
Yes.
So you're treating it the same way as a normal walking bait.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly the same. But for some reason, I just, it's one of my most favorite ways to fish is with a popper. And, they get bit.
Yeah.
Right? So I just do it the same.
Same way. Yeah. And it's important to note, too, I think if you guys are familiar with a lot of the products that we have here, most of the poppers that we carry in the store are going to have the ability to walk as well as pop. A popper obviously is designed to kind of give it a pop, and it's going to kind of boom and pop on the surface and kind of pause. And that's really the design of the bait, but certainly you can move it and walk it and do whatever you want or whatever you have success with. For me, this is the few times a year that I throw it, they almost always go on the Steez 7.2 medium. So I'm back to that one.
Yeah.
So again, that lighter tip at the top is perfect for me for a popper. I like a rod that I can just, for me when I'm using a popper, I'm popping it. If I wanted to use a walking bait, I just use a walking bait. So
eventually you'll catch a lot of fish though.
Yeah, I catch plenty on a walking bait. This sounds like a 1v1 in the making. Walking bait versus popper. But really,
don't do it to yourself.
Challenge accepted. For me, I like that lighter tip where I can just kind of pop it and that light tip just kind of pulls it down. A little bit lighter rod is great. Majority of time a popper is gonna be, you know, anywhere from 1/4 to a 1/2 ounce. Pretty rare that you find a popper that's above a 1/2 ounce. I don't own one. Do you own one? Bigger than a Potmax?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just kind of a different category. So if you guys are looking for a great stick, either of those would be good. Another one that's an amazing option is the flat side special from Megabass. So this is a rod that was designed for throwing small square bills, little topwater. Now this rod is much softer than the Jerkbait special.
Yeah, much.
So we get a lot of questions, you know, if you're looking for a dedicated topwater rod, you know, Megabass advertises the flat side special as their topwater rod. But for me, for a walking bait we've talked about, the Jerkbait special is a much better option.
Yes.
The flat side special is a beautiful option for poppers, if you're gonna throw them as a popper. Yeah. So, and again, the reason is because it's soft. It's got a lot of bend to it. It's almost too soft for really walking a big bait. It's just gonna create a lot of resistance and pull. It's gonna drive you nuts. But for something like a popper, we're throwing out there and just kind of twitch and just boom, boom. It's beautiful, okay? So that could also be a great option in the 250 range.
Okay.
All right, next category. I think he's gonna finally change rods, but let's see what he says here.
I don't know about that.
I should really pay attention to this guy. No wonder I never lose to him in a 1v1.
Oh, because you're the champ, right? Oh, wait. No,
Buzzbait. Okay, enough about
Hold
that.
on.
All right, let's talk about buzzbaits for a minute.
Buzzbaits.
Okay, so buzzbaits come in all different sizes. Of course, you could get, you know, something small, you get something big, you get 2 blades, single blade, 3 blades, 4 blades, whatever. But I'd say day in and day out, a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce buzzbait is pretty much what the majority of us throw.
Yeah.
What rod are you chucking your buzzbait on?
I throw all my buzzbaits on an ND 180.
An ND 180
Yes,
rod.
on the
Holy
ND
cow.
180. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yes.
So that's a 7/8 evergreen
Yeah.
wake bait / swim bait rod.
Yes.
But you like it for a buzzbait.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the buzzbait, I'm looking for something a little bit faster, and that rod for me has that action when I cast it out, I'm not necessarily needing a huge hook set with it. It's loaded. When the fish hits it, it's kind of gonna jack them itself.
Okay.
So I'm never really like swinging on it.
Yep.
It's long enough. I keep the tip up, and I burn my buzzbaits in, and they hit it, and they're just hooked.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't wear you out throwing that all day?
No.
Okay. All right. So there could be an option for you. For me, I like more refinement. So I choose the Destroyer P5 Madbull. Don't you love when I talk about bougie ass stuff and Jeff just starts shaking his head yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a bougie guy. So for me, the Madbull is super sick. Again, if you've hung out around our channel, pretty much any topwater episode we've ever done, this has been included in it. It's one of those rods, just super versatile. Same idea though, about what you were just saying about a buzzbait, is I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make with a buzzbait is they see the strike and you just instinctively kind of jerk.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, one of the things that you want to make sure you're doing with a buzzbait is let them eat it, and you want that rod to kind of absorb a little bit of that strike and slow you down a little.
Yeah.
Right? So this just makes a beautiful, excellent rod. I've also been throwing the 7.3 medium heavy Steez AGS a lot this year just to put it through the paces. And that rod could easily go with this rod as well. There's just something special about a Madbull for me that I love. So, you know, if I'm picking my dedicated buzzbait rod, it's this. That Steez would be second. You've got the combat stick.
Yeah. It's a big rod, but
yeah,
like you guys know that rod is with me. Always.
all the time.
Always.
Yeah, you throw a lot of stuff on that rod.
Yeah. And when one day I didn't have a buzzbait rod. I want to throw a buzzbait. I threw it on there, and I was just like, oh, this is my new buzzbait rod.
Yeah, for sure. So, and if you guys don't want to spend $500 on a Madbull or a Steez, the combat stick can make a great one. Also, like if you want to stay in a Megabass rod and Levante or Orochi, the Diablo Spec R would be a great one here to kind of fill this gap. It's a really good buzzbait rod as well. Yeah, because it's got that same kind of action as what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to another category. There's no way he's throwing this on a jerkbait rod, but it's Griff, so who knows? All right, let's talk about this.
All right.
How about a frog?
So the frog rod is a rod that I have multiples of.
Okay.
I really like this Jerkbait. No, I'm joking.
Give me that thing. You're done with this rod.
No. So obviously frogs come in at 800 different sizes, and you want to match your rod to the frog that you're throwing.
Right.
In a standard frog, my gabbit, my gavacho, and all that stuff, I'm throwing the TS Destroyer poker.
Okay. So this is also my favorite frog rod.
Yeah. It's an amazing frog rod.
Yeah.
Everybody looks at these rods and think that they're broomsticks and stuff, but they're not. Like this thing, like it's perfect for a frog.
Yep.
But it is a little big, so you want that bigger frog, that ½ ounce and above frog on there. It has that perfect action. It's only 7.2, so it's pretty short. It'll allow you to work the frog, and then I call it like my cheating stick, because when they eat it and I set the hook, almost every single time that fish is coming out of the water.
It's one of those rods that you hit them and it pulls the fish out of whatever it was in for you.
Yes.
Before you even have, like, it's all one motion. The hook set is actually pulling it out.
Yeah.
And your land ratio is amazing on this rod.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It gets that hook in there.
Yep.
And it's in there. You can lose contact with the fish and then just crank down and boom,
it's still there.
It's still there.
Yeah. So this is a rod. This has kind of been my dedicated rod over the last few years for throwing a frog, and I've started to add a few other rods. I've added the 7208 arms just because, right? We might as well be extra bougie.
Yeah.
Which is a super dope one for just like super jacking them out of stuff.
Yeah.
But the other rod that we started implementing earlier this year that I've really become a fan of is this guy. And this is the new Steez AGS 7.4 Extra Heavy. So they call it the Heavy Cover Special. So they used to make a 7.4 frog rod, the XBD rod, that was really kind of known as like the industry standard of frog rods. I found that these two rods now give me an amazing 1-2 punch. And even though this is 7.4, it's lighter than the poker.
Oh yeah.
By a pretty big amount, right? So for me, if I'm fishing from shore or I'm fishing where it's really heavy cover, like trees and wood and stuff that I'm making more of a skip or a shorter cast, or I really need to hit them and move them, like you said, the poker is still my go-to.
Yeah.
But out here a lot, we fish a lot of frogs in open water. So we're making really long casts because the water's clear. Maybe it's over grass. Maybe it's down a tule line. There's more distance involved, right? And we really need to have that frog walk. That Steez rod is unbelievable for that. And it probably could do all the shorter distance stuff as well, but I don't need to really use it for that because I have the poker and the arms. But I found that this really has fit in a nice little niche for me for more open water walking a frog. It walks it so easy. And really the big thing, if you guys are just getting into frog fishing, what I look for in a frog rod is obviously it's got to have a ton of power in that little tip, like Griff said. Yeah. But the biggest reason for that, and can I borrow that poker, is when you're walking these things where a traditional walking bait, you might be like actually kind of really, using the rod to get the bait to move. With a frog, literally all I'm doing is just kind of squeezing my hand. And I want a rod where I can kind of position the rod kind of very, very stable and just kind of squeeze my hand so the motion is very, very small to get that bait to move. Because the frog's really small, right? And there's not a lot to, even this is a pretty big frog.
That's a big one.
There's not a lot to it. So if you pull too hard, all it's gonna do is just kind of pop and like porpoise up and down. So the movement has to be very small, very finesse. Both of these rods have that same ability to where I can just kind of squeeze my hand and that frog moves. So
one thing I've noticed about these Steez rods is no matter what the length is on them, they all fish small.
They don't feel, like that doesn't feel like a 7.4 when you're fishing it.
No.
So even if you're from a kayak or you're from shore, like it's not gonna feel like you have this crazy long rod.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So either of those can make great options. If you guys are looking for less expensive options, the Perfect Pitch is a good one in Orochi or Levante. A lot of guys use that rod for that. But for me, these are definitely the go-to. Can't say enough good things about these.
Yeah.
We agreed on a rod.
Yeah.
What is happening?
Crazy.
All right.
You know what's a sick Kyera rod? The Power Pitch.
Oh,
yeah.
I could see that. So the 7.2 heavy
It
Steez.
sucks for a fucking, like a gavacho or a gabbit.
Yeah.
But for a Kyera, Power Pitch is dope.
Ah, I could definitely see that. You throw that way more than I do.
Yeah.
I don't have to downsize. All right, and then let's close the category with a bait that I don't really throw that much, so I'm just gonna give it to you, a crawler style bait. I know you love these things.
Yeah.
So talk to us about your crawler prowess here. What rod are you using on this thing?
So this one also 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna go with my ND 180.
Okay.
Or what is it now? The wake bait.
Yep.
Combat stick.
Yep.
But you know, sometimes I'm in like a situation where I don't have a ton of space.
Yep.
So this killer code right here.
Yeah, here I got it.
Yeah. So the P5, the Destroyer P5 killer code is an amazing option for it, right? So it's gonna have a softer tip on there, so it's gonna allow you to cast these baits a little further than using a long, 7/8 rod, because this one sits at 6'6".
Right.
Right. But it's got enough power in it to control the bait. On these baits, you're just slow cranking in, and then when you jam that fish, like it's gonna stick them.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a fun rod to throw.
It's one of my favorites in the line. That definitely is a sleeper.
Yeah.
So this style bait, this crawler style bait, and I know that you throw this style bait pretty much everywhere you go.
Yeah.
But the crawler trend in Japan is really a pond trend.
Yes.
Right? I mean, guys do throw them in bigger lakes, but really where the crawler crushes is from shore and canals and ponds and skinny water in tight places, right?
Yep.
And this rod, the Killer Code, was built for that angler.
Yeah.
So it's hard sometimes when you're in an overgrown place to lug your 7/8 rod and be able to have access to not be hitting trees, to not be banging around stuff when you're really cramped. Whereas a 6'6" rod is functional.
Yeah. Yeah, it's small. You're gonna lose a little bit of casting distance on there, but not much.
Right.
Right? Because they did the tip is a softer. It's gonna bend. It's gonna fling it out there.
Yeah.
The rod handles. It's very, very strong.
Yeah. I think it's rated up to 2 ounces, right?
Yeah, rated up to 2 ounces.
Yeah.
I use this rod for a lot of different things too, but like the crawler bait, the gong, all my wake baits in those tight little spaces. Like it's the perfect gong rod. Like,
True.
Like they match up so well.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I've even seen you use this rod for like open water, deep, like flutter spoon stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So a ton of versatility.
Yeah. Sick rod.
Yeah. All right. So I think we covered all the categories. Did we miss anything?
Probably.
Probably. If we missed something, holler at us. Drop us a comment down below, and we'll throw our thoughts and comments on it. But I think that's pretty much all the main basics of topwater fishing, especially for this time of the year. So hopefully that was insightful. It's a little peek into our thought process and rods that we have experience behind and rods that we love. If you have questions on anything that we covered, drop it down below and we will definitely get to it. Jeff will leave links to the products if you want to check any of them out. On behalf of myself and Griff and Jeff and everybody here at the Hookup Tackle, guys, thank you for the time. Thank you for the business. Holler if there's any questions you have. We're happy to answer them. Until next time, Jeff, we have a 1v1 to do. Walking bait versus popper. You in?
Hell yeah.
Who's doing the popper?
This sucker. Walking baits only. Peace, guys.